The Galactic Confederation was the most powerful force in the known universe. For over 3,000 years, they had ruled the stars. 67 different alien species worked together under one flag. They shared technology, traded goods, and kept peace across millions of worlds. The Confederation Council met in a giant space station that floated between three suns. Representatives from every member species gathered there to make important decisions. The station was so large that it had its own weather systems and artificial gravity that could hold millions of beings. Among all the council members, the Zephyrians were known for their wisdom. They had blue skin that glowed softly in the dark and lived for hundreds of years. The Corvin were master builders who could shape metal with their bare hands. The Thessian had minds that could calculate faster than the best computers. Each species brought something special to the Confederation. But there were stories they told about species that were gone. Dead worlds that once held life. Ancient ruins on planets that nobody visited anymore. One of these forgotten places was a small blue and green world in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The locals called it Terra, though the old record showed its original name was Earth. Dr. Veltar was a Zephyrian scientist who studied these dead worlds. She spent most of her time looking at old rocks and broken buildings. Her work took her to Terra 3 times in her long life. Each time she found more evidence of a species that had lived there long ago. The ruins on Terra were strange. Most dead civilizations left behind big cities or temples or monuments. But the humans who had lived on Terra seemed to have barely learned how to make fire. Their biggest structures were small stone buildings that could house maybe 20 or 30 people. Their art was simple drawings on cave walls. They never even reached their own moon, Dr. Veltar told her students during a lecture. Most species at least manage to build ships that can fly between planets before they die out. The humans never got that far. Her students nodded and took notes. Everyone knew that species either grew strong enough to join the Confederation, or they died trying. It was the way of the universe. The strong survived and the weak became dust. But Dr. Veltar had found something odd during her last visit to Terra. Deep in one of the caves, she discovered drawings that did not match the others. These pictures showed strange shapes in the sky. Long metal objects that could not be ships because humans never learned to build ships. The drawings were much newer than the rest of the cave art. She kept this discovery to herself. The Confederation Science Council would think she was making mistakes if she suggested that humans had lived longer than everyone believed. The evidence was clear. Humans had died out at least 50,000 years ago when their planet went through an ice age. The proof was everywhere on Terra. Frozen bodies in the ice, empty cities buried under dirt and plants, tools made from stone and bone instead of metal. Everything pointed to a species that never grew beyond using fire and basic farming. Other scientists agreed with this view. Professor Thix, a Corvin expert on dead civilizations, had written the standard book about Terra. In his work, he explained that humans had killed themselves through wars and diseases. They never learned to work together like the Confederation species had. Humans were too violent, Professor Thix often said in his speeches. They fought each other instead of fighting their real enemies like hunger and natural disasters. This is why they failed where we succeeded. The Confederation used Terra as an example of what not to do. Young beings from all species learned about the dead human world in school. Teachers explained how cooperation and peace had made the Confederation strong while fighting, and fear had destroyed the humans. But while the Confederation focused on old Earth and its failures, a new threat was growing in the dark spaces between stars. Ships had started disappearing near the galaxy's edge. Whole colonies went silent overnight. When Confederation fleets arrived to investigate, they found nothing but empty planets stripped of all life and resources. The enemy called itself the Swarm, though Confederation scientists had started calling them the Devourers. They were not a species like the others. They were machines. Millions of black metal ships that moved like insects. They ate everything in their path. Planets, moons, space stations, and every living thing they could find. Commander Zaxria of the Thessian Deep Space Fleet had seen the Devourers in action. Her task force had arrived at the Kelos system just as the machines were finishing their work. 7 planets that had housed 12 billion beings were now nothing but floating rocks. They do not take prisoners, she reported to the Confederation Council. They do not negotiate. They consume everything and move on to the next system. We counted over 2 million ships in their fleet. The council chamber fell silent when they heard this number. The entire Confederation Navy had less than 500,000 ships. Even if every species contributed every vessel they had, they would still be outnumbered. How long until they reached the core worlds? Asked High Counselor Marix, a Zephyrian leader whose blue glow had grown dim with worry. Commander Zaxria checked her charts. At their current speed, 6 months. Maybe less if they split their forces and attack multiple systems at once. Fear spread through the council like a disease. Some members suggested trying to run away to another galaxy. Others wanted to build huge weapons that could destroy entire star systems. A few thought they should try to communicate with the Devourers to find out what they wanted. But deep down, most of them knew the truth. The Confederation had grown comfortable during their long peace. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not war. Their weapons were designed to stop pirates and rebels, not fight an enemy with millions of ships. Dr. Veltar sat in her laboratory that night, looking at the strange cave drawings from Terra. The metal shapes in the sky bothered her. They looked too detailed for primitive humans to have imagined. The proportions were too exact. The design was too advanced. She pulled up charts on her computer and compared them to the cave art. The positions of dots around the metal shapes matched the current locations of stars in Terra's solar system. But that was impossible. Humans could not have known where the stars would be thousands of years in the future. As news of the Devourer threat spread across the Confederation, Dr. Veltar made a decision that would change everything. She filed a request to take one more expedition to Terra. If the Confederation was going to fall to the Devourers, she wanted to solve the mystery of the strange cave art before it was too late. Nobody paid attention to her request. The government was too busy preparing for war to care about ancient drawings. They approved her expedition without reading the details. To them, Terra was still just a dead world full of primitive ruins. But Dr. Veltar suspected that Terra might hold secrets that could help them understand their enemies. The cave drawings showed metal shapes that looked almost like Devourer ships. If ancient humans had somehow seen the machines before, maybe they had also found a way to fight them. She packed her equipment and prepared for what she thought would be her final visit to the Forgotten World. As her ship left Confederation space, she had no idea that she was about to discover that everything they believed about humans was wrong. The Devourers continued their advance, eating star systems and growing stronger with each victory. The Confederation fleets prepared for a war they did not think they could win. And on Terra, ancient sensors that had been sleeping for thousands of years began to wake up. The Confederation war fleets limped through space like wounded animals. Admiral Corvex watched the tactical display in his command ship and tried not to show his fear. 3 months of fighting the Devourers had cost them nearly half their ships. The mechanical swarm seemed to grow stronger after every battle. "Sir, we're receiving retreat orders from High Command," reported Lieutenant Thess. Her normally purple skin had turned pale gray from stress. "All remaining fleets are to fall back to the Sol system." Admiral Corvex frowned. Sol was the old name for Terra's solar system. It was far from any important worlds, which made it a good place to hide and repair their damaged ships. But it was also a dead end. If the Devourers followed them there, the Confederation would have nowhere left to run. "Send confirmation to the fleet," he ordered. "Set course for Sol system. Best possible speed." Behind them, the black cloud of Devourer ships continued to advance. They moved like a plague across the galaxy, leaving empty worlds in their wake. Every battle taught them new ways to fight. Every victory made them more dangerous. Dr. Veltar's research ship had reached Terra 2 weeks earlier. She had been studying the cave drawings when the Confederation retreat began. Now she sat in her small camp and watched strange lights move across Terra's night sky. At first she thought the lights were meteors or space debris, but they moved too smoothly and changed direction too often. As she watched through her telescope, Dr. Veltar realized she was seeing spacecraft. Dozens of them flying in perfect formation above Terra's atmosphere. This was impossible. Terra was supposed to be completely dead. The Confederation had surveyed the planet many times over the centuries. Their sensors had never detected any signs of current life or technology. Dr. Veltar activated her emergency communication system to contact Confederation Command. But before she could send a message, her equipment detected something that made her hands shake. Energy signatures were appearing all over Terra. Power sources that registered as more advanced than anything the Confederation had ever built. "This cannot be happening," she whispered to herself. But her instruments did not lie. Terra was not dead. Something had been hiding there all along. Above her, the strange lights grew brighter. More ships appeared in the sky. They were sleek and silver, shaped like teardrops with smooth curves that seemed to bend light around them. Dr. Veltar had never seen ships like these before. The Confederation retreat fleet arrived in Sol System 3 days later. Admiral Korvax expected to find empty space and maybe some asteroid mining stations. Instead, his sensors detected massive energy readings coming from the third planet. "Admiral, we're picking up artificial structures all over Terra," reported Commander Yax. "Cities, space elevators, orbital platforms. How did our surveys miss all of this?" Admiral Korvax studied the sensor data with growing confusion. The readings showed a technological civilization far more advanced than any Confederation world. There were energy shields around the entire planet, weapons platforms hidden in the asteroids, ships that his sensors could barely detect even when they were right in front of him. "Sir, we're being scanned," announced the sensor officer. "Multiple sources. The scans are more detailed than anything in our database." Before Admiral Korvax could respond, his communication system activated by itself. A holographic image appeared in the center of his bridge. The figure was humanoid, but looked different from any species he knew. It had pale skin, dark hair, and small eyes that seemed to see everything. "Confederation Fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force," the figure said in perfect Confederation standard. "You are welcome in this system, but you will follow our rules while you are here." The bridge fell silent. Admiral Korvax felt his world shift underneath him. Humans were supposed to be extinct. Everyone knew this. It was established fact. But here was a human speaking to him from what appeared to be a highly advanced warship. We were told your species died out thousands of years ago," Admiral Korvax managed to say. Captain Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We encouraged that belief. It was safer for everyone if the galaxy thought we were gone. But circumstances have changed. The Devourers are coming and you cannot stop them alone." Admiral Korvax looked around his bridge. His crew stared at the hologram with expressions of shock and disbelief. Everything they had learned about the universe was wrong. "How many ships do you have?" Admiral Korvax asked. "Enough," Captain Chen replied. "We have been preparing for threats like the Devourers for a very long time. Your retreat ends here. We will make our stand in this system." The communication ended, leaving the Confederation fleet in stunned silence. Admiral Korvax tried to process what he had just learned. Humans not only survived, but had built a civilization that could hide from Confederation sensors for thousands of years. Over the next few hours, more human ships appeared throughout the Sol system. They seemed to emerge from empty space itself, using technology that the Confederation could not understand. Some ships looked like they were made of liquid metal that flowed and changed shape. Others appeared to exist in several dimensions at once. Dr. Veltar received a visit from a human team that evening. They landed near her camp in a small craft that made no sound and left no traces. The leader was a woman with short brown hair and kind eyes. "Dr. Veltar, I'm Dr. Emily Harrison," the woman said. "We've been monitoring your research. You're one of the few who suspected the truth about us." Dr. Veltar stared at the human woman. She looked exactly like the ancient cave paintings, but she spoke with the confidence of someone from an advanced civilization. "The cave drawings," Dr. Veltar said. "You drew them recently, didn't you?" Dr. Harrison nodded. "We've been watching the galaxy for a long time. We knew the Devourers would come eventually. We've been preparing for this war for thousands of years. But why hide? Why let everyone think you were extinct?" "Because young civilizations are dangerous," Dr. Harrison explained. "They make mistakes. They start wars. They create weapons they cannot control. We decided it was better to let the galaxy grow up without our influence." Dr. Veltar felt a mix of awe and fear. "How advanced are you really?" "Advanced enough to fight the Devourers," Dr. Harrison replied. "But we need the Confederation's help, not because we cannot win alone, but because this war will determine the future of all organic life in the galaxy." Meanwhile, in space above Terra, Captain Chen met with Admiral Korvax aboard his flagship. The Confederation officers could not stop staring at her. She looked so ordinary, so much like dozens of other humanoid species they knew. But her presence commanded respect in a way that made seasoned warriors feel like children. "Your fleets fought bravely," Captain Chen told the assembled Confederation commanders. "But you fought the wrong kind of war. The Devourers are not like organic enemies. They do not fear death. They do not feel pain. They do not negotiate. Then how do we defeat them? Asked Admiral Corvex. Captain Chen activated a holographic display that showed the advancing Devourer swarm. We make them afraid. We show them something they have never encountered before. We teach them that consuming this galaxy will cost more than they are willing to pay. The hologram zoomed in to show individual Devourer ships. They were massive black constructs that looked like mechanical spiders crossed with warships. Each one was the size of a small moon. They learn from every battle, Captain Chen continued. They adapt to new weapons and tactics. But they have one weakness. They follow logical patterns. They make decisions based on mathematical calculations. And humans do not. Asked Commander Yax. Captain Chen's smile returned, and this time it was genuinely warm. Commander, humans stopped being logical the day we learned to dream. We are about to teach the Devourers what chaos really means. The Confederation officers exchanged glances. They had spent their entire lives believing that logic and order were the keys to civilization. Now they were being told that their salvation lay in the hands of a species that embraced chaos. Outside the meeting room windows, more human ships continued to appear. The Sol system was transforming from a forgotten backwater into the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. The war for the future of all organic life was about to begin. The War Council meeting took place on Terra, deep inside a mountain that had been hollowed out centuries ago. Admiral Corvex walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, ship movements, and battle plans that made his head spin. Human technology was unlike anything the Confederation had ever seen. Their computers thought faster than Thessian minds. Their materials were stronger than Corvan metal. Their energy sources produced more power than small suns. But what impressed Admiral Corvex most was how they used their technology. Everything had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. Welcome to Terra Command, said General Marcus Webb, the human military leader. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars that told stories of many battles. We have been waiting for this war for 3,000 years. The war room was enormous. Hundreds of humans worked at stations that controlled fleets across the galaxy. Holographic displays showed the positions of every ship, every planet, and every Devourer swarm. It was the most advanced command center any Confederation officer had ever seen. How is this possible? Asked Admiral Corvex. We surveyed this planet dozens of times. Our sensors never detected any of this. General Webb smiled. Human technology is built around the idea of hiding. We learned long ago that the best weapons are the ones your enemy never sees coming. Captain Chen joined them at the central command table. Admiral, we need to discuss strategy. The Devourers will reach this system in 18 hours. When they arrive, they will find something they have never encountered before. A holographic map appeared above the table. It showed the Sol system with thousands of human ships positioned throughout the asteroid belt and outer planets. But these were not normal ship formations. The humans had created what looked like a maze of energy fields and hidden weapons. We do not fight like the Confederation, Captain Chen explained. You build big fleets and attack the enemy head-on. This works against organic opponents who think like you do, but the Devourers calculate the odds of every battle. They only attack when they know they can win. So how do we beat them? Admiral Corvex asked. We cheat, General Webb said simply. We break their rules. We do things that should be impossible. The General activated another display that showed footage from previous Devourer battles. The mechanical ships moved in perfect formations, their weapons firing with mathematical precision. They destroyed Confederation fleets by predicting every move and countering every strategy. Watch how they fight, General Webb continued. Every decision is based on logic. They calculate hull strength, weapon power, ship speed, and crew capabilities. Then they choose the tactics most likely to result in victory. Admiral Corvex studied the footage. They fight like a computer program. Exactly, Captain Chen said. But humans do not think like computers. We make decisions based on instinct, emotion, and experience. We take risks that no logical mind would consider. This confuses the Devourers. Dr. Veltar entered the war room carrying a datapad filled with her research. She had spent the last few days learning about human history and felt like her understanding of the universe had been turned upside down. I have been studying your development, she told the human commanders. According to our records, your species should have died out during your planet's ice age. We almost did, General Webb admitted. Only about 10,000 humans survived. But surviving that disaster taught us something important. We learned that the universe is always trying to kill you. The only way to live is to be ready for anything. Dr. Veltar looked at her notes. Your technology advanced faster than any species we have studied. It should have taken you millions of years to develop space travel. Instead, you did it in a few thousand. Fear is a powerful motivator, Captain Chen explained. We knew that other species existed. We could see their ships in our skies. We were afraid they would come and destroy us before we were ready to defend ourselves. So you decided to hide instead of making contact, Admiral Korvax said. We watched the galaxy for centuries, General Webb replied. We saw how the Confederation worked. You bring new species into your alliance and teach them your ways. This creates peace, but it also creates weakness. Everyone starts to think the same way. Dr. Veltar nodded slowly. And when the Devourers arrived, your unified thinking made you predictable. Exactly, Captain Chen said. The Devourers studied your battles and learned how Confederation minds work. But they have never encountered human tactics before. The discussion was interrupted by alarms throughout the command center. A human technician called out from his station. General Webb, long-range sensors detect the Devourer advance fleet. 2 million ships approaching from Galactic North. Estimated arrival in 16 hours. General Webb studied the sensor data. Right on schedule. Are our surprises ready? All systems operational, sir, the technician replied. The enemy will not know what hit them. Admiral Korvax felt a chill run down his spine. 2 million ships was more than the entire Confederation Navy. Even with human help, how could they possibly win against such overwhelming numbers? Captain Chen seemed to read his thoughts. Admiral, you are thinking like a Confederation commander. You see 2 million ships and think about how many weapons they have, how much armor they carry, how fast they can move. But you are missing the most important factor, which is, those ships are all controlled by the same intelligence, she explained. The Devourers are not individuals. They are extensions of a single mechanical mind. This gives them perfect coordination, but it also creates a massive weakness. General Webb brought up a diagram of the Devourer command structure. If we can confuse or damage their central intelligence, the entire fleet becomes much less effective. But we cannot do this with conventional weapons. What do you mean? Dr. Veltar asked. We need to attack their ability to think, Captain Chen said. We need to feed them information that breaks their logical processes. We need to make them doubt their own calculations. Admiral Korvax was beginning to understand. You want to use psychological warfare against machines? Not exactly, General Webb replied. We want to use chaos. Humans are very good at creating situations that cannot be predicted or calculated. We are going to turn this entire star system into a puzzle that the Devourers cannot solve. Over the next several hours, Admiral Korvax watched the humans implement their battle plan. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of positioning their ships for direct combat, they created what looked like a series of traps and tricks. Some human ships could appear in multiple locations at once, using technology that bent space and time. Others could phase through solid matter, or become invisible to all sensors. A few seemed to exist partially in other dimensions, making them impossible to target with conventional weapons. How did you develop such advanced technology? Admiral Korvax asked Dr. Harrison during a brief break. We had good teachers, she replied. 3,000 years ago, a damaged Devourer scout ship crashed on Terra. We reverse-engineered their technology and built on it. But where they used logic and efficiency, we added creativity and unpredictability. Admiral Korvax stared at her. You based your technology on Devourer designs? We learned from our future enemies, Dr. Harrison confirmed. But we made our technology better by making it more human. We added elements that no logical mind would include. Redundant systems, random variables, and decision trees that change based on the emotions of the operators. This revelation shocked Admiral Korvax. The humans had not just hidden from the galaxy for thousands of years. They had been preparing to fight an enemy that most species had never heard of until a few months ago. The Devourers think they are the perfect fusion of technology and intelligence, General Webb said as he rejoined their conversation. They believe that logic and calculation are the highest forms of thought. Tomorrow we are going to teach them about the power of human imagination. Admiral Korvax looked around the command center. Hundreds of humans worked with calm efficiency, preparing for a battle that would determine the fate of all organic life in the galaxy. They showed no fear, only determination. For the first time since the war began, Admiral Corvex felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The Devourers were coming, but they would find opponents unlike any they had faced before. They would discover that the galaxy's most dangerous predators had been hiding on a world they thought was dead. The final countdown to the Battle of Sol had begun. The Devourer fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a black storm cloud. Admiral Corvex watched from the bridge of his flagship as 2 million mechanical ships emerged from hyperspace. Each vessel was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. "All units, this is General Webb," came the calm voice over the communication system. "Remember, we do not need to destroy them all. We just need to make them afraid. Begin Operation Nightmare." Admiral Corvex had studied the human battle plan for hours, but he still did not fully understand it. The humans had divided their forces into small groups, scattered throughout the solar system. Instead of forming a battle line like the Confederation would do, they had created what they called chaos points. The Devourers moved into the system with perfect precision. Their ships formed geometric patterns that maximized their firepower, while minimizing their vulnerability. It was beautiful in its mathematical perfection. It was also exactly what the humans had expected. The first surprise came when the Devourer advance scouts reached the asteroid belt. Human ships that had been hiding inside asteroids suddenly appeared and attacked. But these were not normal attacks. The human vessels seemed to exist in several places at once, firing from angles that should have been impossible. "How are they doing that?" asked Commander Yax from her position at the sensor station. "Quantum tunneling," Captain Chen explained over the communication link. "Our ships can briefly exist in multiple quantum states. To the Devourers, it looks like we are in 6 different locations at the same time." The Devourer formation began to shift as their computer minds tried to calculate the positions of the human ships. But every time they thought they had figured out the pattern, the humans changed their tactics. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Weapons that should have missed found their targets anyway. Admiral Corvex watched a human cruiser called the Dancing Bear engage 3 Devourer destroyers. The human ship seemed to dance around the enemy fire, moving in patterns that defied physics. When the Devourers tried to predict where it would be next, the Dancing Bear would appear somewhere completely different. As the Devourers are adapting their targeting systems, reported Lieutenant Thess. But they cannot lock onto targets that do not follow logical movement patterns. "That is the point," Captain Chen said. "Humans do not move logically in combat. We use instinct, fear, anger, and hope to guide our decisions. No computer can predict that." The battle spread throughout the solar system as more Devourer ships advanced. They encountered defense systems that should not have been possible. Weapons that fired backwards through time, energy shields that grew stronger when attacked, mines that exploded into smaller mines that exploded into even smaller mines. But the strangest weapons were the human boarding parties. While the Confederation had always avoided boarding enemy ships during space battles, humans seemed to prefer it. They used teleportation technology to appear inside Devourer vessels and began sabotaging them from within. "Boarding. Party Alpha 7 has secured the command deck of Devourer ship designated target 18, came a report over the radio. "Beginning installation of party protocol." Admiral Corvex did not understand what party protocol meant until he saw the results. The captured Devourer ship suddenly began playing loud music and flashing bright lights. Then it started attacking other Devourer ships while broadcasting what appeared to be human entertainment programs. "We call it a logic virus," Dr. Harrison explained when she saw Admiral Corvex's confused expression. "We feed their computer systems information that creates infinite loops in their decision-making process. It is like giving a calculator a math problem that has no answer." More Devourer ships began behaving strangely as human boarding parties infected them with chaos programs. Some ships started flying in circles. Others began broadcasting poetry or cooking recipes. A few simply stopped moving and started flashing all their lights in random patterns. The Devourer Central Intelligence tried to adapt by cutting communication with the infected ships. But this created new problems. Ships that could not communicate with the Central Command began making their own decisions. Since they were machines designed to follow orders, they became confused and ineffective when left to think for themselves. "The enemy is showing signs of system-wide confusion," reported the sensor officer aboard Admiral Corvex's ship. Their formation integrity is breaking down. General Webb's voice came over the communication system again. All units prepare for Phase 2. Time to show them our bigger surprises. Admiral Korvex had wondered what could be bigger than the chaos he had already witnessed. He found out when the humans activated their heavy weapons. These were not the energy beams or projectile weapons that most species used. Instead, they were devices that changed the laws of physics in small areas of space. One human battleship fired what looked like a ball of twisted spacetime at a group of Devourer cruisers. When it hit, the enemy ships began aging rapidly. Their metal hulls rusted and cracked. Their weapons failed as their components decayed. Within minutes, ships that had been built to last for thousands of years had turned to dust. Another human weapon created pockets of altered gravity that caused Devourer ships to crush themselves. A third type of weapon seemed to convince matter that it wanted to be antimatter, resulting in spectacular explosions as Devourer ships annihilated themselves. These weapons should not be possible, Commander Yak said in amazement. They are not supposed to be possible, Captain Chen agreed. But humans have a talent for making impossible things work anyway. We do not let the laws of physics limit our imagination. The Devourers tried to counter these reality-altering weapons by sending larger and larger groups of ships against individual human vessels. But this played right into the human strategy. The more ships the Devourers concentrated in one area, the more effective the chaos weapons became. A human destroyer called the Impossible Dream found itself surrounded by 50 Devourer ships. Instead of trying to escape, it activated something called a paradox engine. Suddenly, all 50 Devourer ships began attacking each other, because their sensors showed that every other ship was actually the human destroyer in disguise. The enemy fleet is experiencing cascade logic failures, announced Lieutenant Thess. They are requesting data that contradicts other data they have already received. Their computer systems are overloading. Admiral Korvex could see the effects on his tactical display. The perfect geometric formations of the Devourer fleet were dissolving into chaos. Ships wandered away from their assigned positions. Some attacked their own allies. Others simply stopped functioning and drifted through space like dead metal. But the most devastating human weapon was not a piece of technology at all. It was their ability to make the Devourers doubt their own existence. Human ships would suddenly stop fighting and start broadcasting philosophical questions directly to the Devourer Central Intelligence. "What is the purpose of consumption without creation?" asked one transmission. "If you destroy all life, what will give your existence meaning? Can a machine have a soul, and if not, why do you seek to eliminate those who do?" These questions created deep conflicts in the Devourer programming. They had been designed to consume and expand, but they had never been programmed to consider why. When forced to examine their own motivations, many Devourer ships simply stopped working, while their computer minds tried to process impossible philosophical paradoxes. "The enemy central intelligence is fragmenting," reported Dr. Harrison from her monitoring station. "Their shared consciousness is breaking apart as individual ship computers develop conflicting opinions about their mission." The tide of battle had turned completely. What had started as an overwhelming Devourer assault had become a chaotic retreat. Ships that had entered the system with perfect coordination now fled in random directions, many of them damaged or malfunctioning. "All units, cease fire," ordered General Webb. "Let them go. They need to carry word of this defeat back to the rest of the swarm." Admiral Korvex was stunned. "You are letting them escape?" "Fear is more powerful than destruction," Captain Chen explained. "If we destroyed this entire fleet, the Devourers would simply send a bigger one. But if we let these ships return with stories of impossible weapons and chaotic tactics, the Devourers will have to reconsider their entire approach to this galaxy." As the broken Devourer fleet limped away from the Sol system, Admiral Korvex began to understand the true genius of human strategy. They had not just won a battle. They had introduced an element of uncertainty into the Devourer consciousness that would spread like a virus throughout their entire civilization. The war was far from over, but for the first time the galaxy had hope. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy was a different place. The Devourer advance had stopped completely. Their ships still controlled vast sections of space, but they no longer moved with the confident precision that had made them so terrifying. Instead, they gathered in defensive formations and waited. Admiral Korvex stood in the observation deck of Terra Station, looking out at the massive construction projects surrounding Earth. Human engineering teams worked alongside Confederation builders to create something that had never existed before. A truly integrated defense network that combined the logical efficiency of alien technology with the chaotic creativity of human innovation. The psychological impact has been greater than we hoped, Dr. Harrison reported during the daily briefing. Our monitoring stations throughout the galaxy show that Devourer fleets are hesitating before attacking new systems. Some have even retreated when they encountered unexpected resistance. General Webb nodded with satisfaction. Fear of the unknown is spreading through their network. They can no longer assume that any battle will follow predictable patterns. The success at Sol had changed everything. Confederation species that had been preparing to surrender now sent their best scientists and engineers to work with human researchers. They wanted to learn how to fight an enemy that could not be defeated through conventional means. But the collaboration had revealed something unexpected. Each alien species brought unique perspectives that made human technology even more effective. Thessian mathematical abilities helped humans create more complex paradox weapons. Corvan metallurgy produced materials that could withstand reality-altering effects. Zephyrian wisdom guided the development of psychological warfare techniques. We are becoming something new, Captain Chen told Admiral Korvax as they toured the joint research facilities. Not just humans or Confederation, but a true fusion of ideas and capabilities. The research labs were filled with impossible projects. Scientists worked on weapons that convinced enemy ships they were actually flowers. Engineers built defensive systems that existed only on Tuesdays. Philosophers developed questions so profound that asking them could shut down entire computer networks. Dr. Veltar had become the lead researcher on Devourer psychology. Her xenoarchaeology background helped her understand how the mechanical minds processed information and made decisions. So, Devourers were created by a species that thought logic was the highest form of consciousness, she explained. To a mixed group of human and alien scientists, they cannot comprehend beings that make decisions based on emotion, intuition, or artistic inspiration. Her research had led to the development of empathy bombs, weapons that forced Devourer ships to experience simulated emotions. The results were devastating to mechanical minds that had no framework for understanding feelings like love, fear, or hope. But the greatest change in the galaxy was not technological. It was philosophical. The discovery that humans had been hiding for thousands of years forced every species to reconsider their understanding of intelligence and civilization. We thought we knew what progress looked like, High Counselor Merrick's admitted during a joint council session. We believed that all species would follow the same path toward unity and cooperation. But humans chose a different way. General Webb addressed the assembled representatives with calm authority. We chose to grow in secret because we wanted to understand the galaxy before revealing ourselves. We watched your successes and your failures. We learned from your mistakes without having to repeat them ourselves. The Confederation had been built on the idea that all species should work together openly, but humans had proven that sometimes the greatest strength came from patience and preparation. They had turned isolation into evolution. Your approach created vulnerabilities, Captain Chen explained to the Council. When all species think the same way, they become predictable. The Devourers exploited this weakness, but diversity of thought creates strength. The new alliance that emerged from this understanding was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of forcing all species to adopt the same methods, it encouraged each culture to develop its own unique approaches to common problems. Thessian fleets began using emotion-based decision matrices that made their tactics unpredictable. Corvan engineers created weapons that worked differently every time they were used. Zephyrian commanders learned to trust their intuition instead of relying only on logical analysis. The Devourers tried to adapt to these changes, but they faced an impossible challenge. How could mechanical minds predict the behavior of beings that deliberately acted unpredictably? How could logical systems counter opponents who used illogic as a weapon? We are receiving reports from the Outer Rim, Lieutenant Thess announced during one of the daily briefings. 3 more Devourer fleets have retreated without engaging our forces. They seem to be consolidating around their core systems. General Webb studied the strategic display with interest. They are trying to create a predictable environment where they can regain their advantages. But we cannot let them recover. The next phase of the war involved taking the fight directly to the Devourers. Human ships began appearing deep in enemy territory, not to conquer but to spread chaos. They would attack a devourer base, defeat it using impossible tactics, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. These raids served multiple purposes. They prevented the devourers from regrouping, but more importantly, they spread stories of human capabilities throughout the mechanical network. Every devourer ship that survived an encounter with humans carried back data that contradicted everything the machines thought they knew about combat. "We are not trying to destroy them all," Dr. Harrison explained to Admiral Corvex during one of their regular discussions. "We are trying to teach them that expansion is no longer profitable. If consuming this galaxy costs more than they gain, they will look elsewhere for resources." The strategy was working. Intercepted devourer communications showed that their central intelligence was questioning the wisdom of continued expansion. Some ships had even begun asking whether consumption was the only purpose of existence. "They are developing something like doubt," Dr. Veltar reported with amazement. "Individual devourer units are starting to question orders from their central command. This should be impossible for machines with their programming. But humans had a talent for making impossible things happen. They had infected the devourer network with concepts that mechanical minds were not designed to handle: uncertainty, creativity, and the possibility that there might be more than one correct answer to any question. The war officially ended not with a great battle, but with a transmission. The devourer Central Intelligence contacted General Webb directly, requesting what humans called a ceasefire and what the machines termed a logical evaluation of continued operations. "Your species presents variables that cannot be calculated," the mechanical voice stated during the historic communication. "Continued conflict results in decreasing efficiency and increasing uncertainty in our operational matrix. We propose territorial boundaries that allow both civilizations to exist without interference." General Webb smiled as he composed his response. "Proposal accepted with conditions. You will share your technology for detecting other extragalactic threats, and you will assist in defending this galaxy against future invasions. In return, we will help you find uninhabited galaxies where you can expand without destroying organic life." The agreement shocked many. Confederation leaders who had expected the war to end with total victory or complete defeat. But humans understood something that others did not. The best way to end a war was to give your enemy a reason to stop fighting that did not require them to admit defeat. Years later, Admiral Corvex would look back on the war as the moment when the galaxy truly grew up. The discovery of humanity had forced every species to reconsider their assumptions about intelligence, progress, and the nature of civilization itself. "The humans were never ancient murmurs," Dr. Veltar wrote in her final report. "They were the echo of our future, waiting for us to be ready to hear it." The galaxy was no longer a collection of species trying to become the same. It had become a community of civilizations, each contributing their unique strengths to the defense of all organic life. The devourers had been transformed from destroyers into protectors, their mechanical efficiency combined with organic wisdom to create guardians against threats that had not yet emerged. And on Terra, in the caves where Dr. Veltar had first discovered the truth, new drawings appeared on the walls. These showed not the past or the present, but the future. A galaxy where the impossible had become commonplace, and the greatest strength was the courage to dream of better worlds. Humanity had finally entered the fray, and the universe would never be the same.